Hi patrons, so as I talked about, I'm going to do some extra things here in February just to celebrate, well, I guess celebrate the 2 years of the Patreon page. And one of the things I talked about doing was also a chord melody arrangement. So this is a chord melody arrangement of the song Lady Bird. It's a little bit of a further development of one. This is an arrangement that I made, I think when I kind of just got started with jazz, so it's quite old. I changed a few things now, but essentially it's something that I made a long time ago. And what you'll see here is it's a take on how to harmonize that melody, not as just like a standard solo chord melody arrangement, but really as block harmony. So I'm pretty much harmonizing most of the melody. Most melody notes are harmonized as a chord under most of the notes. And it's a great exercise for that. It's also just in terms of getting some flexibility with playing chords and harmonizing like that, which of course is also sort of a stepping stone towards playing chord melodies, chord solos. And I think that's also how I learned to do that for a big part. I think Lady Bird, it's a song I use quite a lot as a progression also, because I think it's a nice progression to play over, and it's easy to demonstrate a lot of things on. So it's also nice to just use this part of it where the theme is also actually really useful for a few things. And there are a few really cool tricks in this arrangement. So I didn't record, I'll record a version of it and also give you a backing track that you can play this with, because it's of course not meant as a solo guitar performance. It's really meant to be played in an ensemble. But I didn't record that yet. I'll do that when I'm done with shooting how I'm playing it. So for the first part of it, the song starts with 2 bars of C major, and the melody note is just a G. So the melodies, and the challenge with that is actually the original reharmonization, the original chords that I had under here were also just one chord. They were just this C major chord, but then without the root. So we get this E minor triad, and then I played. And now I actually added sort of a layer to that, because you can have this inner voice happening. So what I'm doing is really I'm just moving the lowest note in the chord down in half steps and then back up again. And that's of course that's possible. You can also just stick with that first chord and then just get that down and then add the rest later. And then from there it moves on to F minor 7, B flat 7, and here the first melody note is a B flat, and I'm really just playing that with a good drop 2 voicing for an F minor, and then using the B flat as a melody. And then we get a melody that's essentially just contained in that chord, so that's a very practical solution for playing that. And then this B flat 7, but I'm just playing the top part of it, so. And then the melody that I took from this, and this is also because it's old, I got from the real book, from the old Berkeley real book, and there the melody is these notes, so the G and E. If I remember correctly, the actual melody is actually G and F, but this is the version that I made then, so I'm just sticking with that. And I'm doing that by playing first this for the B flat 7 and then moving down here. And you can do that in different ways in terms of fingering. That's really just how you want to solve that. Like, I guess that would sort of be the options that work. They all work. It's about finding what works for you, I think. Then we're back on C major, and it's exactly the same melody of 2 bars. Sorry. And here we get another 2/5. That's B flat minor 7 to E flat 7 to A flat major 7, and that's just the B flat minor. The C is in the melody, down the chord. So that's really practical. And then we get essentially the same melody as on the B flat 7, but now it's just moved up a 4th to E flat 7. And I'm doing that with first this E flat 7 13 voicing, drop 2 voicing to a sharp 11 voicing. So now we have for the second line. main thing with this is just making sure that you can get the changes to sound smooth, and that you can get from one chord to the next without adding too much dead air, I guess. Then we get two examples, and this is actually where I think this is a great exercise also, and also a great demonstration of two things that work really well for harmonizing in block harmony. That is, one is sort of a voice leading trick that actually I learned it from Barry Harris. So I guess I must have made this when I've been to The Hague for the first time for the Barry Harris course, which would be in 97, 6 or 7, I'm not sure. So that's this, and that's because the melody, it's on A flat major 7, the melody is... So again, we have a melody that's repeating, and it's just a chromatic run from B flat to A flat. And the first note is the 9th of the chord, so the B flat, and I'm using this drop 2 voicing, so C minor drop 2 voicing, and the last one is the A flat, so just the root, and I'm using this F minor as an A flat major 6 voicing for that. So we have this one and this one, and really what happens is, of course, that this happens in the outer voices, and then this stays together and stays the same throughout. And since the melody is moving in half steps, we can also just do that with the outer voices, and then we get... This takes a bit of practice. Usually this is an arrangement I give to a lot of my students, and this part is always really taking a lot of practice to get used to. But it is really useful because also when you learn this one for the song, you can actually use that when you're comping as well. So I actually use that quite a bit for those types of songs, so more sort of swing, bebop like mainstream stuff. Then this is a really nice thing to have in there as a variation, instead of just playing one voicing for an A flat. And then you can check them out, like for this one, and then essentially, of course, it works everywhere, because really what's happening is you're taking the A flat major 7 with a 9 voicing, and then you're just changing these two voices, and that works everywhere. So it also works if I'm here, and I always get this diminished chord in between, so that's also, the voicing in between is actually a voicing that you know, but it doesn't, in terms of describing what's happening with the harmony, it doesn't really make too much sense to talk about it like that. It's really just thinking about the voice leading. So these all work as possible solutions to using that same trick in other positions, just with the same A flat major 7 chord. Then we get another use of chromatic passing notes, where it's not a diminished chord, because on the A minor D7 that follows, then the melody is really just the same, just a half step higher. So first on the A minor and then on the D7. So the way I'm doing that is first just playing the A minor 9, so that's a C major 7 drop 2 voicing, and then I want to end on this one, and the way I did that was just to add a chromatic passing note in between, which is a B flat minor. So, and that's the solution to that. I think I've talked about that in some of the chord melody lessons, the chord solo lessons as well. But that's really just the idea. I'm just looking at where am I going, and then working with that. The other one you could do, which would have been maybe a little bit more elegant, would be to take the leading note that's a half step below. So you get, instead of B flat minor, you get A flat minor 9, and then resolve, and then you have sort of this cross resolve that's nice. But that's not what I didn't really think about that when I made this. And then I'm doing exactly the same with the D7, And here you could of course explain the chromatic leading note as a dominant also, so you can explain that as being an E flat 7. But essentially it's just chromatic passing chords. So you get. And then the final cadence. This voicing for because the melody is a C, it's not very often that the melody is actually the 7th on a D minor 7 or a minor 7 chord. So here I'm using this drop 2 voicing just because it's a beautiful voicing and we kind of never get to use it. Down to this G7, so which is really just this G13 without the root. And then the final. And here I'm sliding up to from the C sharp up to the D, ending on the G here on the C major 7, and then I'm starting to add the chords under that, so. And that's really just the Ladybird turnaround, so that's just to E flat 7 to A flat major 7, and then this high D flat 7. I'm going up here because usually you play the theme twice, so then you're in the neighborhood. So that's this chord melody arrangement that that I think would be a useful thing to check out. Anyway, regardless of how I'm doing chord melody arrangements normally, which are maybe a little bit more aimed towards solo guitar, I thought this was a nice change to have in there. And I think it's a very practical, very useful exercise. Just check out stuff like this and do some standards. If you can find songs, I guess this is not really a standard, it's an original, but if you can find songs where you can get away with playing these block harmony things and they're not too busy, because then that's a really good thing to check out, just to develop. I mean, as I talk about with the A flat major 7, you're really developing some vocabulary that you can use when you're comping, and it's also going to help you create more arrangements like this, and especially also help you with chord solos. So there's like a lot of aspects that are coming up here, and you can also tell already from here, and I'm kind of wondering if it was because I was playing the Stratocaster that I wasn't really using a lot of the lower drop 2 voicings, and that's of course on a Strat. If you turn down the tone and stuff, it gets muddy really quickly, and that could actually be an influence with that. I'm not sure about that, but I also do find that this is sort of very light and it fits in most places, and it's also, even if you play it like this with a piano player, it actually leaves quite a lot of room for the piano player to still play around it and not get in the way, where if you start filling stuff up with really large voicings, then the effect of that is maybe that's going to clash quite quickly, and you need to do more with that. It gets a little quite clunky somehow, and just keeping this higher register I find is really practical for that. That's just my personal taste though, but that's also a little bit why that's here, and you can just when I'm looking at it now, I find it interesting to see how that actually came about already at that time, because I didn't really think about it. That was just purely reacting to how I thought it sounded. For the rest, I mean, if you have any questions on this, then just let me know. I'm gonna record it now, and then I'm gonna add the backing track as well, so you guys can check it out with the backing track. Feel free to try and play it and record yourself playing it with the backing track or without the backing track, if you want any feedback on what's going on, which is also what I normally offer people that do the chord melody. Not that they do it most of the time, but still, that stands for everybody for sure. So if you want some feedback on how you're playing it, if there's something in there, then just let me know, and record it and send me a video of it, or post it in the Facebook group or something. That's all open to how you want to do it. And then, yeah, I don't know if there's something you guys would like to see, also just for this month, if I can get around to doing it, then let me know. Or at least then I know for another time that there's something extra that I can do. That could also be kind of cool. I was thinking about actually doing like a studio tour, so that you know, because you only see sort of this side of the camera. It's very, very rare that you get a glimpse of where I work and stuff. So maybe I should do that. It's a huge mess usually. You can kind of see that with the Patreon videos, because I'm not cleaning up as much. but then you know how I'm working and how that looks. So you don't only see like the one side of the camera, kind of. But that was just a thought. I mean, other things, if there's something you want to know or you want me to talk about, leave a comment, let me know about it, then maybe that's something I can do. So thank you for your support, and then I'll see you later in a normal lesson.